Peace and blessings, and welcome to the ZOLA Experience. It's all about love podcast. This is our inaugural show. I am Katora A. Bryant, no period behind the A, and I am your host, and my co-host is
Howie Blau. I like to think, people ask me what I do. I like to think I help make people's dreams come true. And by that, I mean folks want to do something good in the world.
Mhm.
And so we try to talk about the possibilities of building not-for-profit organizations that they can seek public money and monies from private foundations to fund the work that they want to do in their communities. So that's what I do, and that's how we got together. And it's been a great change in my life. So I'm so happy to do this with you.
Thank you. Yes, Howie was very instrumental in that, and I truly believe in synchronicity and that there's certain things in your life that just happen that are just divinely planned. So the
And
ZOLA
we just happened.
and we just happened. So we just want to spend a little time for you to get to know us because we're going to be very good friends as we go through the many episodes that are to come. And we want you to tell your friends and your family to come join us in our ZOLA experience because it truly is all about love.
So much is new to me, so much of what you do, because you've taught me so much in the couple of years we've been together. I think I need to understand more about the genesis of all this. You were at a time in your life where you had finished careers. You've been brilliant in all your careers. You had done everything, and you could have just said, "I'm going to sit around now and collect my pension checks and play with my grandbabies." But that didn't happen. Something happened that said, "I got to do this." What happened?
Well, I just think it's just part of my fiber. It's just part of my DNA. And my journey really perhaps started with my great grandmother, who was a healer. And I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm a fifth generation baby. My great grandmother was alive. She held me. She loved on me when I was born, which is really a rare thing that happens. So her name was Julia Melcorn Crump, and she was a medicine woman out of Arkansas. And she and my great grandfather, George Washington Crump, they gave birth to my great grandmother. Her name was Matilda Crump Pierce. And Mama T, as we fondly called her, she healed people with herbs. And I recall very vividly when I was growing up in Nashville that we didn't have any grass in the yard. We just had on the perimeter of the yard, we had herbs and daffodils, and we had this big, huge honeysuckle bush. And she would work her magic. People would come and she would give them a bag of herbs and whatever it was that they needed. My grandmother, her name was Lenola Pierce Woodard, and she was a beautician. She was a tailor. She was a seamstress. She was all of those things, and she healed people with her hands. And so she ran a successful beauty salon in Nashville, Tennessee called Beauty Land Beauty Shop. And her whole thing was if I can make sure that someone's crown, their hair was done, and that it would improve their self-esteem. And she was right about that. And then she gave birth to my mother, Florence Pierce Bryant, who is a retired registered nurse from the VA. And my mom, she worked with the veterans and we thank them for their service. But I also thank my mom for her service to the veteran community as well. And she was an ICU nurse, which is something that I know that I cannot do. But she influenced me to go into nursing. And so that's how I got my first degree. And so my desire to heal and to be a good listener really stemmed from all of that. So fast forward to working for the state of Connecticut in retirement. In 2020, when we're in the throes of probably the most intense time of loss globally, um, I was moved and motivated. I believe that that ancestral energy, I believe that kind of energy stays with you and it motivates you to do certain things. So I was awakened at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah, I know it sounds really, that sounds different. But I know there's some of you out there that understand me. So I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. And this silent voice says to me, um, "I want you to do Zola, and you have to do it differently." And the difference was that I had done, had the foundation of what we're doing with Zola in 2012, but my focus then was really on people that had just lost a person. And the clinicians that were working with me, we were all very high powered and overly qualified. And so the difference was that the curriculum that came out of me writing my first book, which is the ZOLA Experience, was that this was something that could be done by lay people. That it was really to be done in a community energy, in a community setting, and that if you had a desire to want to help another human being deal with loss, trauma, and grief, then we could train you to do that in not too much time.
Where did the word Zola come from? How does that fit here? Because it permeates everything that you say and do.
Yes, it does. Zola is an African term that means to love. It's a South African word that means to love. And I truly believe that the highest vibration or the highest energy that you can approach life with is the energy of love. I truly believe that love is the essence of the creator and all of creation. And we sometimes lose sight of that. We sometimes are depleted of that. And so my energy and my desire is to really to get people to begin first to love themselves, because as a therapist, I know that you cannot give from an empty vessel. People try it all the time, and that's what keeps me in business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so with the self-love, once you come to an understanding of to be able to begin to love yourself, because it's a lifelong process, we continue to embrace ourselves every day. And then you can begin to love family. And then you can have love for community and ultimately for humanity. And so Zola means to love. And when we come into communities and homes and spaces, it really is to get people to function in an energy of love. And the first place that we begin in the ZOLA 7 sessions is around looking at self-love.
Okay. Let me ask you then, as I look at this banner, because this banner leads me to more questions.
Okay.
A journey of recovery from loss. Let me ask you about loss.
Mhm.
What does loss mean? I mean, we all feel it. You know, I felt it as a college baseball player. I
Mhm.
felt it as a former trial lawyer. I
Mhm.
felt it in so many ways. I felt it as an inability sometimes to be able to communicate with uh, the generation before me or the
Mhm.
generation
Mhm.
after me.
Mhm.
So what does loss mean?
Well, we experience loss in the sense of losing something that is valuable or losing or transitioning from one experience to the other. So when we talk about loss, we use this term in Zola called your lost love object,
Right.
right? So people say your lost love object. Yes, we have a myriad of lost love objects. Um, we're sitting here today, we lost yesterday.
Yeah.
It's never ever coming back. Whatever we did yesterday, we either today in this present moment, we try to either, if we did something that we need to reconcile, then we'll do it today. But that's when it has to happen in the moment. So when we talk of what happens is people lose things in their life every day, but they don't lend voice to it. They don't talk about it. They don't process it. We're not given permission oftentimes to process it, right? For a prime example, those folks that are working, if they have a job that even gives them this benefit of bereavement, They say that if you lost a mother, father, sister, brother, you get 5 days to grieve,
Thank
and then
you.
you got to come
Yeah.
back to work. It's
Yeah.
like, really, is that even humanly possible? No. And then it's like you get to a point in time where people don't want to hear about your loss. But I know that as a therapist, that 5 days is nothing. You're so traumatized from the loss,
Mhm.
just perfunctory, going through whatever it is you got to go through, and that you don't really get in touch with the feeling part of it for sometimes it's 2, 3 months even.
I think what you taught me was that loss does not mean death, or it
Exactly.
might not mean death.
Exactly.
It's whatever you feel. If I forgot to call my friend yesterday who was waiting for some medical outcome, that's a loss for him and a loss for me.
Mhm.
So it's clearly something where you feel you got to fix it a little bit. What's going on in there?
Mhm.
This thing called loss, and it manifests in a million different ways.
Mhm.
It's remarkable too.
Mhm. But people don't think of it this way. Um, there's geographical loss,
Yes.
right? So I experienced geographical loss when I was 7 years old. I left the comfort of Nashville, Tennessee, with all my family, my relatives, my grandmother, all these people. And my parents had finished college. And so we moved to Seattle, Washington. My dad got a job at Boeing Aircraft, right? So here we go. We go to Seattle, Washington. We know nobody, absolutely nobody in Seattle. Um, and so we're there without any of our natural supports. And, and it was a difficult transition. It was a very stressful transition for
So
the
moving
family.
away from a place of comfort is loss.
It's a loss.
Yeah.
Right. And, going from being a couple to being parents,
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
loss. Um, being a couple to have a desire to be parents, and that doesn't happen, or you're struggling with that. Those are losses in your life
Mhm.
that oftentimes they're not spoken about, they're not talked about, but you're internalizing them, and it impacts how you interact with your world. And perhaps that, our understanding is that once we lend voice and give you permission to talk about those kind of experiences, then perhaps we will have less violence in our communities and less violence globally because people will have dealt with those kind of feelings and it won't come out in some kind of a carom kind of way, indirect kind of way.
It
And
also requires us to be perhaps more than ourselves in understanding someone else's loss.
exactly.
Because your loss is your loss. I might not understand it, but I have to bring it into my life because
Mhm.
you're part of my life.
Mhm.
So the loss can be absolutely subjective
Mhm.
and not necessarily objective in anyone else's eyes.
Mhm.
What you feel is loss is your loss,
Correct.
and you're entitled to and required to somehow fix that loss
Mhm.
so that you can get on
Mhm.
with the rest of your
Mhm.
life.
Mhm. And we talk about building communities of support. That's what the ZOLA 7 sessions does. It creates these communities of support so that you're sitting in a room, right? And we're sharing in the way that we do in ZOLA. And you recognize, like you said, your loss. I may not have lost the same thing that you lost
Right.
in that grade of intensity, but what you can teach me, and perhaps what I can share with you and teach you, is how to how did I get from age 7 or 8 to the tender age that I am now and recovered and was able to get through my life, right? And go to school and do all those
Yeah,
things. What were those supports that helped me? And maybe some of the supports that helped me, as I share them in the group, may also help you.
absolutely.
Maybe something you hadn't thought about. Well, maybe I could think about doing that,
Absolutely.
right?
I mean, we've had conversations where I never would have imagined that there was stuff that was going on inside of me
Mhm.
that you tapped into.
Mhm.
So let me look some more. So now we have some sense of what loss
Right.
might be. What do we mean a journey of recovery? What is Zola's?
Journey.
Yeah,
Okay. Because recovery is a journey. It's not a end point. It is something that you continue to do. You continue to evolve because you have, like I said, you have multiple situations in your life that require at some point in time for you to examine, for you to take a look at. Um, and whatever is going on in your world, it may be something that triggers something that was from long ago, right? So it's a journey, and it's a journey because we want you to have a sense of awareness that you can begin to uncover and begin to dig out some of those things that may be impeding you from even having healthy relationships, right? So it's a journey. It's not an event, right? It's a process that you go through, and then we continue to go through. As in the field that I've been in for all these years, our job is really to, at certain stages that you allow, that we raise awareness. We help you to gain insight. Then you leave therapy, but it's something that you can always come back to. Zola really is a gentle introduction for most people that therapy is okay.
It takes into account, I think, where every person is individually. It respects, as we said a little bit before, it respects the person's loss, which may not in somebody else's head or heart or mind be of quantity to count as loss. And it also strikes me in the conversations we've had before that the pace on how you journey, the pace of the recovery is really up to the person who's feeling the loss. So there's no magic about it. This is not going to happen in an hour and they're going to be a big poof and you get a certificate and say you're cured. And you can go home now.
No. It's like I say, it's something that we continue to come together. Like you become a family once you go through the ZOLA experience. You become part of the ZOLA family. Your cohort is a special space for you that you stay connected to. And then we have reunions of cohorts like twice a year so that people can come together in a common language with a common experience, talk about how they've grown. And as we unfold this series for this season, you're going to hear from people that have gone through the ZOLA experience and how it's impacted their lives and how it continues to be a part of their life. So it is because it doesn't stop. Change always is a constant. We need to find these spaces where we can find comfort and safety and to come together as human beings and share, just as what I think we're probably an unlikely coming together of our friendship. That if it wasn't for ZOLA and my desire to have a 501c3 so that I can do this work, we might not have be sitting here together as friends.
So then this is the place where I get to pat myself on the back.
Yes, go
When
ahead.
I say, why is ZOLA a 501c3 nonprofit?
Okay.
And how did you achieve that?
I know.
How did that happen?
Just keeping my ears open, ears to the ground. And I think everything is part of divine intervention. That whole synchronicity, that there's no mistakes in life. And, this my desire, our desires to have the funding to do this work. And I know that there's my angel donor out there. I know my angel funder is out there, and I'm talking to you, is out there because people need and want. I have yet to experience someone that when they went through the 7 sessions, that was not moved, that was not changed, right? But the model has to be that people are encouraged and given stipends to engage in this, given us stipends to become a community ambassador leader, ZOLA ambassador, to have funding so that I can train people to be ZOLA navigators who are trained the trainers. We know that that's a system that works. I mean, even when I was working and working and being a research therapist for Yale. One of the things that we did was we looked at how incentives impacts people's behavior to change.
Yeah.
And we know that people need incentives to change. And that's not, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is human nature.
When you talk about the history of your journey, I hear mother, grandmother, great grandmother. I hear women. Why?
I think because the men in our family were very present, and they allowed the women to do what they did. They made sure that there were homes. They made sure that the women were, that we had the environment. They had the environment to be able to do the things that they were doing.
Do you find that men have greater difficulty in getting in touch with themselves and their losses than women do?
Oh, absolutely. You're not
Why?
giving, men
Why?
aren't given permission.
What is the matter with us?
Okay, right. Because from day one, what do you hear them say for young boys?
Macho.
Stop crying. You know, you hurt, you're bleeding
Yeah.
like somebody
Yeah,
cut you,
right.
right? And they say, oh, stop crying. Be a big boy. There's nothing wrong with you. Or if someone that they love moves away, or their grandmother goes away, comes to visit and then goes away, stop crying. Be a big boy. You know, what are you crying for? Well, if you allow me to, I can explain to you why I'm crying, but you're shutting me down. Male children get shut down more often than female children. Female children are encouraged to be
feel.
expressive.
My father taught me when I was very young, it's okay to cry.
But your father was a genius
He
man.
was a genius. He really was. He was. I was blessed. My parents both finished the 5th grade.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But they were the smartest folks around.
Exactly.
And I remember the day, this is 5,000 years ago, when my father said, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
It's okay for a boy to cry. It's okay for a man to cry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in this space that you're affording people who
Mm-hmm.
suffered from loss
Mm-hmm.
is really, to me, a greater opportunity for men. Well, you know, you get hit by a pitch in a baseball game and you just rub it off, go down to first base, you know, it didn't hurt at all. So, but this seems to give an opportunity for men to actually say, you know, it's okay for me to cry.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for me to feel lost. It's okay for me to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wonderful thing that happens within ZOLA.
And the beautiful part of what we do is we create those safe spaces. We do have, depends on the theme of what we're doing, we have co-ed groups. Those identified males, those identified females. We do have those types of groups. However, we do have groups that are specific to certain things. Like we can have a group that's specific to women who have had miscarriages, say. Or we'll have a group that's specific to just men that are returning citizens. Or we can have a group that's specific to women, those identified women who are returning citizens. Mm-hmm. The beauty of what we are doing can be put in any life situation, right? It crosses gender, it crosses gender identification, it crosses geography, where you were born, it crosses health issues. If you have a specific health issue or challenge, it can be integrated and used. I went to the hospital to because I had a broken foot, right? So they were testing the peripheral vascular. People were looking at my foot, and it was like, I said, well, what do you do if someone has an amputation?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, you know, we would really like to be able to do something about that, but we really don't. You could integrate the ZOLA experience into hospital settings, into community-based settings, into homes, into everything. But yeah, so we're going to spend some time talking about all of that. And in our next segment, we're going to talk, I want to ask you some questions.
Oh my goodness.
As to your journey and how we have now ended up together.
Let me ask you just for a moment about the flow of money. Which way? We have exchanged ideas, of course, in the last couple of years, where people can either pay to come into the program, and that has created some difficulty, at least in my mind. And I use the city of Waterbury, Connecticut, as an interesting experience. They were looking to hire some EMTs, and they couldn't get anybody to sign up because people said, we don't have the money to pay for the courses. So what they've done is they've paid people to go to school, and then they've placed them in jobs. So our vision, yours and mine, is that the funding of ZOLA can come from two directions. It can come from the individuals who want to learn what ZOLA is and how they can bring it to their communities. And it can also allow the larger foundations to fund ZOLA so that we can take those funds and give them to the people who want training, and therefore the whole thing grows kind of organically from that. I think it's great.
Yes.
I really think it's great because it took me a long time to understand. As you know, it takes me a long time to do almost anything, but it took me a while to understand funding.
And this is for clinicians. It'll enhance their private practice. It is for any agency to integrate this into their programs, whether it's a behavioral health, medicine, pre or post-op surgery, mental health, mental wellness. This is really a unique tool that can be adjusted to basically anything that you're doing in your life. So we're hoping that you see the ticker tape at the bottom of our screen that says how you can get in touch with us and how you can donate and contact us so that you can help fund some of the causes that we would like to be involved in.
The structure of society makes funding obviously imperative.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's good or not good. I don't know if there's a better paradigm to create for funding of organizations like ZOLA, if there are any organizations like ZOLA. Of course, they can't be without
That's
you.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
To be sure that they can get the funding, because we see what we need to do at the end of the pipeline.
Yes.
There are a bunch of people at the end of the pipeline screaming for help.
Screaming for help
Yeah.
every day. You see it in the media, you see it in movies. I look at movies and say, what would help them would be a ZOLA moment. If they had come through ZOLA and had a caring community, that would have been an ideal place for that to happen.
Yes.
So
I saw a movie last night about a guy who had contracted ALS,
right.
and how he moved through his community and got his community together to go to the lawmakers to get funding for research for ALS. So it seems like, and again, I'm going back here, you talk about community engagement, and that's what you need to do as well to support all ends, all pieces of all ends of this process.
Absolutely.
Well, I think you're doing miracles. I really do. And one of the great things in my life is to be able to do this with you, because it's gratifying, it's fun, it's friends, it's intellect.
Right.
It's
and we're going to talk about it in our next segment.
Well, I think that's a deal.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
I think that's a deal.
Peace and blessings.
Peace.
Open